في أي حد عنده أي شيء؟ قدامنا بالظبط 10 دقايق قبل ما تبدأ الأستاذة لوري، وعايز بس أطلب من حضراتكم تكرما، بس الأستاذة لوري هتقول كلمتها أو محاضرتها باللغة الإنجليزية، فتكرما الصبر. أنا شاركت مع حضراتكم المحاضرة بتاعتها باللغة العربية، ترجمتها قدر المستطاع برضو، وبصراحة بذلت مجهود كبير جدا. يعني شات جي بي تي بصراحة تعب معايا، يعني حتى يعني قال لي انت كفاية كده وانت مش فاهم أي حاجة، مش عارف، مفيش حاجة من عندك خالص. ف... فهو بصراحة تعب معايا. anyway يعني طبعا الأستاذة دوري هتقول محاضرة باللغة الإنجليزية، فنرجو إن احنا نستمع لها استماع دقيق، وبعد كده لو في أي حاجة هنعيد المحاضرة أو هنعيد أي شيء باللغة العربية وهنترجم قدر المستطاع. لكن عشان ما نقطعهاش، عشان نديها الفرصة كاملة إنها تقول محاضرتها، يعني هنسمع محاضرتها بالكامل باللغة الإنجليزية. خلينا ناخد بريك 10 دقايق ونرجع مع الأستاذة لوري. Laurie, please, we will start as scheduled at 2:20, okay, and we'll go break until for the next 10 minutes, okay? So please be ready, and 10 minutes and we will come back. Thank you very much. شكرا جزيلا ليكم. أستاذة لوري تبتدي بعد 10 دقايق. خلينا ناخد بريك لغاية ما نبدأ تاني. شكرا. Laurie, are you ready? Hello?
Hello, Adam. I'm here.
Hi, Laurie. Yes, hi. How are you doing?
Very good. Yourself?
Yeah, good. Thank you very much. Thank you for your support and sharing us. Really, you have a very positive impressions from all members here and all attendees. Thank you very much.
You're most welcome. And I always feel like I've had many opportunities through my life to learn and work. And if I don't share that, then that's not good.
Thank you.
And this makes me feel good, and hopefully it helps you as well.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, Ray. So you like to start? And yeah, okay. So please check if you can share your screen or not, because some people cannot. So if you cannot, I can share my screen with you. Please check, and I will download your
moment.
Okay, take your time.
This is my first Google Teams meeting.
Oh, no problem.
So
Okay.
I did check out what I could ahead of time. So you should see my slides. Let me see. Show my screen anyways. Okay.
Okay.
You should see my screen now.
Yes, we see. Yes. Perfect.
Okay. Did you want me to go ahead?
Yes, please.
Okay, great. Thanks so much for having me here, everybody. So as it says on your screen, I'm going to bring you how to teach your staff about the chain of transmission. And so I just want to mention before we start that this is a way that you might teach your staff and some ideas. Definitely not the only way. And I'll mention a couple of the adult learning principles that I'm using with this presentation, but hope to discuss your ideas, which are also welcome in discussion later or in the chat. Okay, so with that, let me find the right little panel. Okay. So our objectives for today are to describe the six links in the chain of transmission and how they relate to the development of infections. And then using some infection prevention and control strategies, specifically in medical device reprocessing, to break the links in the chain of transmission. And also discuss some ways that you can teach your medical device reprocessing staff about the chain of transmission. And so I'll go through the chain of transmission and an applied example of hepatitis B and how we break the chain, break each link in the chain to prevent the transmission of hepatitis B. And I was just reflecting back on Mr. Abdel Rahman's lecture where he mentioned bloodborne pathogens, and hepatitis B specifically was one of the examples. So this is just being used as an example, but breaking the chain applies in many ways. And then at the end, I'll ask you a question about what we do in medical device reprocessing to break the chain. And this is relevant to both the activities that we do that break the chain to protect ourselves as staff, as well as colleagues working in the hospital and other areas of MDR, as well as patients. And I think it's very important that we do protect ourselves as staff. I mean, we can't help someone else until we've helped ourselves. And so it might sound a little bit self-protective, but I mean, that's where you have to begin. If you're in fear for your own life, then it makes it hard to concentrate on anything else. So this is the chain of transmission. I'm sure that many of you are familiar with it, and we'll talk about, how, like I said, how you can apply different learning techniques. So the chain of transmission is a model that's used to explain how infectious agents are spread, how infections can be prevented, and that an infection cannot develop unless all 6 of the links in the chain are present and connected. So if you have brought 6 colored paper clips, or if you have 6 colored paper clips handy, please ensure you have them and pick up the first one. If you don't have any paper clips, that is completely fine. It's just an example of a way to engage some learners who may like to have something physically going on when they're listening to a lecture or some ideas. Adam?
Yes, Laurie. I will translate to them. Please من فضلكم جهزوا الكليبس اللي احنا طلبناها منكم قبل ما لوري تبدأ. I asked them to prepare the 6 clips, okay? And I have it. I have my ones. Thank you.
Me too.
Thank you. Yeah. Please,
okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Laurie.
So, so the first link in the chain that we're going to speak to are the infectious agents. So these include bacteria, viruses, and fungi. This is the first link in your paperclip chain. The second link is the reservoir. So this includes people, where a disease might be an infection, or they could be a carrier of a disease. Could be water, could be food. And this is the second link in your paperclip chain. So if you are doing the paperclip activity, you can just attach your second clip. The third link in the chain of transmission are portals of exit. So this is how an infection or a disease gets out of the reservoir, the person who's carrying it, or the food or water that it exists in. So portals of exit include blood, body secretions or excretions, as well as our skin. So I'm going to try to stick to the examples that are most relevant for us in medical device reprocessing as we go through here. And portals of exit is the third link in your paperclip chain. And you can have your staff build their chain while you're lecturing, if that's the way that you're presenting the information is by lecture. The fourth link in the chain is the modes of transmission. So this is how a disease might get from one person to another, and speaks to how we can prevent that transmission. So we use different types of precautions applied to prevent transmission. As you know, we use standard precautions, which is how they term it in the US and other countries around the world. In Canada, we call that routine practices. And so that involved with routine practices is cleaning your hands when you need to at certain moments, using PPE, etc. But then we also may apply other preventative or additional precautions, including special contact precautions, droplet precautions, and airborne precautions. And this is the next link in your paper chain, or your paperclip chain. Portals of entry. This is how a disease would get into the next person or the potential host of the infection were they to acquire it. So portals of entry include our mucous membranes. So that is eyes, nose, and mouth. The respiratory tract. We can breathe in some infection and particles, as you know. The gastrointestinal tract. So if we're ingesting foods that may have some infection, causing particles in it, that could be a problem. And then the other one, a big one for us, is broken skin. We want to make sure that we have intact skin as our first line of defense against bringing anything into our bodies that we don't want to. And so there is our fifth link in our chain. Hopefully, like me, you're not struggling too much to put your paper clips together. And finally, a susceptible host. So susceptible host is, I mean, you have to be susceptible to the infection to actually acquire it. So there are a number of things, there are a number of types of conditions that can make some people more susceptible than others. So that can include immunosuppression, people who have diabetes, who have had burns, so their skin is not intact, those who've had surgery, definitely a big group for us to consider in medical device reprocessing. And those at the extremes of age, either the very young or the very old. And while many of these types of susceptibility may not pertain to us personally as workers in medical device reprocessing, the rationale for discussing these conditions that may make people susceptible host, even though it might not apply to us, is based in adult learning theory. So adults are motivated to learn information that they can use right away in their work, but are also often motivated to learn information that can help them in other parts of their life, such as understanding who in our family might be susceptible and how we might need to look at additional measures at home that can help them to be safe and healthy. And that's the final link in our chain. So we have a whole chain here, and we can talk about, afterwards when we have discussion about how having this little physical piece of information as a reminder and a knowledge builder might help our staff to integrate these concepts into their thinking now and in the future. We can discuss that a little bit later on. So there's a nice colorful paper clip chain. So now let's use an example of an infectious disease that can be carried and transmitted from person to person in blood or body fluids on soiled medical equipment. So we can consider how to break the chain of transmission to protect ourselves, our colleagues, and our patients. So we'll use this example and think about how we can understand it and how to prevent it through going back through the chain of transmission again. So we'll look at each link in the chain and how we prevent hepatitis B in the medical. Think about how we can prevent hepatitis B transmission throughout the chain in medical device reprocessing. And there will be a question at the end, and I'll ask you for your feedback on, what we are doing in medical device reprocessing to do that prevention. So here we are back at infectious agents, and we want to begin by considering the infectious agent. So what is hepatitis B virus? It is a virus. It's a small enveloped DNA virus, and it's enveloped in an outer lipid layer. The reservoir for hepatitis B is primarily humans. There are some primates that can become infected, but for our purposes in MDR, unless we're working with veterinarians and working with some of these primates, hepatitis B in humans is what we're most concerned about. So the virus persists in the liver and thus in the blood and body fluids. Sorry about that. And now the portal of exit. So how does hepatitis B exit its host, or where the person it's infecting? So this occurs primarily through blood and body fluids from the infected person. And now the mode of transmission. So all hepatitis B is considered a sexually transmitted disease and a bloodborne infection. For our purposes in medical device reprocessing, we'll focus on the blood contact mode of transmission. So where we can come in contact would be with unsterile medical and dental equipment, or accidental needle sticks or sharps injuries. So, and depending on environmental conditions, hepatitis B virus can live on surfaces for at least 7 days. So some of the things we do in medical device reprocessing that are not necessarily actually cleaning and disinfecting and sterilizing instruments come into play here. So for example, the work surfaces where we're working and can become contaminated. And with a virus like this that could potentially live for a week, it can provide an opportunity for contacting the surface and then maybe touching your face, or, you know, some portal of entry on your body. So this is important for this particular germ, but when we use routine practices, we don't have to worry about specific instances. So portal of entry into entry into a new host is through infected blood or body fluids entering breaks in the skin or contacting with the mucous membrane. So for us, this applies through percutaneous injuries such as needle sticks, or if we've come in contact with sharp objects that have cut our skin or cut through our gloves or protective attire, so thus causing a staph exposure. As well, splashes or sprays of liquid that has blood, if it has the virus in it, and it splashes or sprays and contacts our mucous membranes of the eyes, nose, or mouth, this can be a potential portal of entry. Again, this is another staph exposure. And then if we think about improperly cleaned or sterilized instruments that are contaminated, remain contaminated with infected blood or body fluids, if they are used, then this is mainly potentially a patient exposure risk. And when it comes to susceptible host, of course, I mean, all these previous links in the chain can be intact, but if the host, if we are not susceptible to hepatitis B, then we're good. So it's a break any one of the chain, any one of the links in the chain, but break as many as you can. In the case of hepatitis B, so actually, in order for any disease to be acquired, the host must be susceptible. So immunization, if available, is key. And there are vaccination options for hepatitis B, and all MDR technicians must be vaccinated for their protection. Past infection may also provide immunity. It's a little more complex to figure this out with hepatitis B. So it may be the case if you've had hepatitis B before, you may be immune, but that needs to be evaluated by a medical professional review of blood tests. All right, so here's a question. If you would share your ideas, just as we're drawing to a close here, how can we in medical device reprocessing break the chain of transmission? I mean, on one hand, reduce the risk of hepatitis B spread, but also other disease-causing agents. So I have a few. I'm going to pop up some answers in a moment, but I'll give you a moment to either come off, put your hand up, come off mute, or share in the chat. And Adam, I'll put you to work for translation if need be.
Sure, yeah. اي حد عنده اسئله، حد عنده اجابه للسؤال ده، ازاي التكنيشن بنقدر نكسر التشين او السلسله بتاعه الهيباتيتس بي في المعمل؟ حد عنده اجابه على هذا السؤال بالعربي حتى in Arabic can answer in Arabic and they will translate. ممكن
تعيد السؤال استاذ ادهم؟
السؤال، هي دلوقتي لوري شرحت سلسلة ازاي المرض بينتقل في هذه السلسلة، ازاي نكسر السلسلة دي جوه القسم التعقيم.
What kind of things do we do that break?
Okay, Lori, we have some answers in chat. Of course, Basim Dida said we can use the BPE. And Mustafa answered by vaccinated, and Riyadh also the same answer by vaccinated. أي حد عنده إجابة تانية للسؤال إزاي بنكسر السلسلة دي عشان نمنع انتقال المرض؟ اتفضلي يا أستاذة حلا.
ممكن جاوب أنا بس
طبعا
بالعربي.
تفضلي جاوبي بالعربي، تفضلي.
أول شيء التعقيم الجيد والأكيد 100% للأدوات اللي تمنع نقل الفيروس من الآلة للناقل أو اللي راح اللي يحافظ على شلون يعني نسميها الحاضن.
Okay, first by good sterilization and good clean for the tools. اوكي، عند حاجة تانية ممكن تقول لنا استاذتنا من السلسلة، انت بتتكلمي على اي واحد فيهم؟ يعني بنكسر اي واحد فيهم؟ تمام. في الاستاذة حلا، او اسف الاستاذة منار، سوري.
ممكن
اتفضلي طبعا.
ممكن
اتفضلي.
كمان يعني التعامل مع الأدوات الجراحية بحذر، يعني كمان انتقاله عن طريق الدم، التعامل مع يعني قبل التعقيم، انه نحن ما بدنا نحطها بالتعقيم، كمان التعامل معه لبين ما تتعقم انه يكون التعامل معه بحذر.
اوكي، باي كيرفول
انه اجراء لقاحات لالتهاب الكبد بشكل دوري.
هو الالتهاب الكبدي بياخد لقاح مرة واحدة. Laurie, someone answered by vaccinated, and she said by regular vaccinated. By you referred before that the hepatitis B only need one time vaccinated in life, one life, right? Once a life.
Yeah, correct.
Okay, so I will answer here in Arabic. الهيباتيتس بي او الالتهاب الكبدي الوبائي بيحتاج تطعيم واحد بس في العمر.
ايوه
اسفه استاذ ادهم، جاني اتصال، اسفه جدا.
اتفضلي، لا يهمك، اتفضلي. طيب، اي حد عنده اسئله ثانيه؟ اسراء، بليز اسراء اتفضلي.
هو مش سؤال بس مداخلة.
اتفضلي كلميها بالانجلش، كلمي لوري بالانجلش.
So Laurie, your answer for MDRD, the first step we do is we wash our hands. Hand or soap if you having soil debris, or using the hand sanitizer if your hands are not soiled, like visibly soil. Okay?
Absolutely.
So I'm just gonna translate that in Arabic to everyone.
Yes.
Yeah, so I popped up a bunch of answers here around our chain of transmission. Some of them relate to some of the links. Many of them, as you know, will relate to more than the link it's pointing to here.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, very good point. When there's a question for infection control, the answer is almost always hand hygiene.
Okay, I'm just gonna translate that to them.
Yeah, it's one of the good answers.
Yeah. الخطوة المهمة إنه نكسر هذا التشين كمعقمين، إنه أول ما تدخل على القسم لازم تغسل إيديك بالماء والصابون، أو تستخدم التعقيم الكحول، جزء الكحول. هاي أهم خطوة لبريك التشين.
Absolutely. So one of the principles that I've lived by since working in OR and also in infection control is to try to think about how, as you're doing your work, to confine soil, dirt, contain it, minimize it, and then try to eliminate whatever is left. And so one of the most important things that I always go back to is teamwork and communication. And often we find here, sometimes it's difficult for us to work together across operating room, MDR, and infection control, just because we don't necessarily have the opportunity to speak to each other often. And one of the most important, I think, cross-team activities that's important for safety is the pre-cleaning step of medical device reprocessing. So pre-cleaning should happen in the operating room. And so most times it's to be done by the scrubbed personnel at the surgical field. Sometimes people don't really realize that this is their job. And so having that teamwork perspective and talking about how the operating room personnel are involved in medical device reprocessing, both as contributors, but also as benefiting from it. So just wanted to wrap up on that final point, bringing back the teamwork aspect of medical device reprocessing. Thank you so much for your attention, and happy to discuss any further as time permits.
Thank you, Laurie. Thank you very much for your attending. Thank you very much for your support. And I have to announce you as academic advisor for the first diploma in Syria, so which will start September 2026. So thank you, Laurie, for joining our team, and you are welcome. Thank you very much. So Abdurrahman has a questions for Laurie, please.
بس هسأل بالعربي معذرة.
اتفضل بالعربي.
هل يجب على قسم العمليات إبلاغ قسم التعقيم بوجود حالة مصابة بفيروس بي على الآلات الجراحية؟
Okay, Laurie Abdurrahman asked if the OR should announce the SPD or MDRD about any infection or any hepatitis or any things if infected for patients or not.
So if your system is very strong about, like if in your MDR, if everyone is very strongly working with the principle of routine practices or standard precautions, in that system, we assume that everything we touch and every body fluid has a pathogen in it that could potentially be transmitted to us. So by using standard precautions, hand hygiene, PPE, cleaning, disinfection, sterilization, this is how we would eliminate any risk to us or those in the future. So if your healthcare system is developed sufficiently that you can work within that principle, then there's no need to highlight whether the patient has a bloodborne pathogen or not, because you're going to treat everyone the same, and that's how we eliminate the risk.
Okay, perfect. عبد الرحمن هي جاوبت ان لو السيستم اللي عندنا قوي او اللي في المستشفى او في المكان اللي بتشتغل فيه قوي، فانت مش في حاجه ان قسم العمليات يبلغك او يقول لك عن اذا كانت في حاله انفكتد ولا لا او عندها مرض ولا لا، لان انت بتتعامل مع كل حاله على انها مريضه وعلى انها عندها مشكله. طبعا يمكن الكلام ده اوضحته برضو اسراء قبل كده، وقالت ان احنا بنتعامل مع كل حاله على انها حاله خطره، وبنلبس البي بي اي، بنلتزم بلبس البي بي اي بمجرد ما ندخل، بنعمل الهاند هايجين بتاعنا، بنغسل ايدينا بمجرد ما ندخل بدون ما يكون في تذكير من قسم العمليات بوجود حاله مصابه او لا. Thank you. عفوا. Any questions?
Dr. Adam, I have a question, please.
Yes, please.
Hello.
If you can talk in English to Laurie directly.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Laurie, for your presentation and clarification about some points. My question is about the hepatitis B and the effectiveness of the vaccine. What about if the patient or the one who was exposed to the needle disc, for example? How do we know that the vaccine is effective? Do we have to, for example, go and make some tests and see the titration of the vaccine in the blood? I mean the antibodies? Thank you.
That is a possibility, and it kind of depends on the situation, who is exposed, and what we know about their immune status. So I can think of instances where perhaps a staff member had a needle stick injury, and maybe we did not know what the status of the patient was. So sometimes we do go back and ask. In our case in Canada, we have to get permission of the patient to test their blood, and in most cases they're willing. If they know their status, often people will share. Sometimes people don't, and so the follow-up with occupational health can vary depending on what we find. If it's a patient who has been exposed, then again, it's the same kind of investigation. Again, trying to assess what is the status of the person and whether they should be administered prophylactic preventative medicine.
So thank you, Laurie. So in general, we can say that vaccine for one time with its 3 doses is enough for life immune, right?
Well, I have to say I'm not a vaccine expert and I'm not a physician, but in general, I would say that that is true.
Clear. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Laurie. Any questions, please? Do you have any questions, any notice, any comment? Okay, so thank you very much, Laurie, and please, next week we will contact again for the first team meeting for the first diploma in Syria. Thank you very much, Laurie, and appreciate it and support, and appreciate for your support and for your time and for everything. Thank you very much.